Now to practice all of those definitions and different properties that we just saw. So this is properties part 2. Properties are statements that are true for any number. So the expression 6 times 10 and 10 times 6 are equivalent expressions, equivalent being the key word, because they have the same value. So determine whether the two expressions are equivalent. If so, tell what property is applied. If not, explain why. So here we have our 15 plus parentheses 5 plus 8, and where we change the parentheses from the back to the front, 15 plus 5 plus 8. So if we look at our properties, we want to look at our properties on the first page and see which property has 3 numbers with parentheses. And that is this property right here, our associative property. So we want to see if the two sides are equivalent. Well, we see that by taking this problem here and solving it. So we say this first part, is it equal? I don't know. Let's put a question mark there. And then let's solve. So order of operations says 5 plus 8. 5 plus 8 is 13. So then we have 15 plus 13. 15 plus 13 is 28. So let's go over to this other side. Here, order of operations tells us to add 15 plus 5 first, which is 20. Bring down the 8. 20 plus 8 is 28. The left side of the equal sign matches the right side of the equal sign. So the expressions are equivalent by the, and that's where we came over here and we saw what property matches, right, by the associative property. So 15 plus 5 plus 8 is equal to 15 plus 5 plus 8 with the parentheses in different spots. Number 2 has the parentheses as well. Here we can see that the 20 minus 12 is in parentheses, and over here the 12 minus 3 is in parentheses. So we're going to rewrite this and solve. That's how we check to see if both sides, so here's our equal sign and question mark, how we check to see if both sides are equivalent. Does the property work? That's what these properties are doing, to see if the two sides are equal. So here order of operations says 20 minus 12 is 8. 8 minus 3 is 5. Here order of operations says 12 minus 3 first. 12 minus 3 is 9, so we rewrite it in 20 minus 9. 20 minus 9 is 11. So no, these are not equivalent. So here let's fill in the blanks. The expressions are not equivalent because the associative property is not true for subtraction. So here through number 1 and number 2, we found out that yes, associative works out for addition, but no, associative does not work out for subtraction. So 20, so we're going to rewrite the problem that it gave us. 20 minus 12 in parentheses minus 3 is not equal. We write not equal with the equal sign and a slash through it to 20 minus 12 minus 3 in parentheses. And that's finishing up number 2. Number 3. Number 3 says 20 divided by 5, is that equivalent, question mark, to 5 divided by 20? I would like you to solve both sides, pressing pause and then press play when you are finished. So the left side of the equal sign gave us 4. The right side of the equal sign should have given us 2500ths. If you did not get that, press pause and check out my division over here to the right and find your mistake, and then press play when you are finished. But so these are not equivalent. So the expressions are not equivalent. And my pen's not working. Not equivalent because what property is this? So in order to figure out what property this is, we need to look on the front page of our notes, which looks like this little page that I just dropped in, and see what property has the two numbers on each side just in reverse. So 20 came first right here, but comes second here, and 5 comes first here, second here, but first there. And that is our good old commutative property. Our commutative property has that. So we say that this is 20 divided by 5 is not equivalent to 5 divided by 20 because of the commutative property is not true for division. And I put commutative twice. It should say, I'm sorry, the commutative property is not true for division. I would like you to try number 4 on your own. Use examples 1, 2, and 3 to help you if you get stuck in one of your steps. First, you need to solve to see if each side is equivalent or not. We will check this one tomorrow in class. So now, number 5 has 14 times 1. Well, don't we all know that 14 times 1 equals 14? So what you want to do is look on that first page of all of our properties and say, well, what property is showing us that a number times 1 equals that number? What property tells us that? We have commutative, associative, identity, inverse. Let's look at the identity property here. This identity property tells us that the sum of an addendum and 0 is the addendum, or the product of a factor and 1 is the factor. Well, our factor was 14, and it is 14. So this is true according to the identity property. And our last problem here, number 6. In a recent season, the San Antonio Spurs had 15 guards, 4 forwards, and 3 centers on their roster. Generate 2 equivalent expressions using the associative property that can be used to find the total number of players in their roster. So, would we add or multiply these numbers to get our total? If you said add, you are correct. So it says to generate 2 equivalent expressions. Well, let's think of just one right now. What's an equivalent expression that can get us to write down, and no matter which way we are going to write it, it's going to give us the exact amount of players. And I would go with, let's do the associative property. Okay, so our associative property, and it asks us, is it associative? We're going to say yes, because I just told you that. But our associative property are 3 numbers that can be grouped differently. So we have 15 guards plus 4 forwards plus 3 centers. Well, here I can choose to group the second 2 numbers together, and that's equivalent, we're going to make sure, to 15 guards plus 4 forwards plus 3 centers with our parentheses in the front. So if we do 4 plus 3, that's 7. 15 plus 7 is 22. Over here, 15 plus 4 is 19. 19 plus 3 is 22. So, yes, associative works for this. Associative is one equivalent expression we can use to add up these players for the San Antonio Spurs, and they be the same. So we could say, 15 plus 4 plus 3 is equal to 15 plus 4 in parentheses plus 3. And it says to come up with 2 equivalent expressions. So I want you on your own to think of your second equivalent expression. What could you do? What could you do to adjust these numbers and bring that to class tomorrow and discuss it with your table groups.